The elites don't want you to know this, but the compilers online are free. You can download them. I have 458 G++ binaries at home. So in case you couldn't tell, I've gone off the deep end, and this one's gonna be even more off the cuff than usual. You'll understand why towards the latter half of the video. This is devlog number 026, and oh my god, I did not expect it to be like this. There's been a confluence of unfortunately timed events and an amount of overconfidence that I thought I had outgrown. I also have no footage, so I hope you're happy with whatever B-roll I put up. But like all tragic tales of Hamartia, this one starts off on a happy note. My prediction of working in C++ for my game happened sooner than I expected. I actually like writing C++. I love its function signatures and I love curly braces. Python and GDScript to an extent really turned me off because of the whitespace formatting. I think it's goofy. I don't feel alive unless I'm allocating memory. But anyways, GDScript's physics API was less developed than I had expected. I had planned for the weapon I was implementing to do AoE damage while the projectile traveled. Turns out there's nothing for moving overlaps in Godot at the moment, so I ended up whipping up something fast myself. It's extremely hacky. You can tell because I named the class Physics Hacks. Instead of actually moving a shape along a path, it's just a bunch of individual samples along said path. Hacky, but it gets the job done. I also got a nice gander at Godot's build system, Scons, which, you know, overconfidence alert, didn't seem that bad when I was just doing the GD extension stuff, which is just the first part of the perfect storm that beset me. And then another okay note before the truly bad stuff. It's no secret that I am based and Emacs pilled, but I like to try out other things from time to time, and all the Primogen and TJ DeVries gaslighting finally got to me. After writing some C++, I was in an adventurous mood, which is to say I've been trying out NeoVim. I believe I already shared my text editor journey over the years, but I tried NeoVim back when it was 0.0.1 pre-alpha back in 2016 or 2017 or whatever, and didn't stink with it at the time. But before switching to something else, Atom I believe, I resolved to give NeoVim another chance at a later date when it was more developed. Well, that time is now. It's nice. I like it, but it feels like I'm going to go back to Emacs, and I don't think it's because of the sunk cost fallacy. But back on track. There were a couple days of me blindly groping around others' NeoVim configs and TJ's Kickstart config while setting up my own. And I have something that I'm happy with. One of my complaints / compliments is that Lua is such an easy language. There are just too many plugins for NeoVim. I even made a few of my own to amateurishly replicate some Emacs packages that I was really missing. But even though I am typing this in NeoVim right now, I still prefer Emacs. Like, I haven't even bound Control-H in normal mode to move left because I know I'm gonna be going back to Emacs in a bit, and baby, that's help. My current fling with NeoVim has really helped crystallize the big Emacs strip down and rebuild I have planned. While Emacs is bae, does she really need MPC mode? No. Also, I tried Oil and Telescope's file browser plugin, but I'm using vanilla NetRW instead. But anyways, I am rambling. In short, if you've ever been on a text editor configuration bender, you know while it can be summarized in a few long breaths, it takes time to actually do. And here's where all the pieces come together. So I was working on my game in NeoVim, but turns out the LSP sucks in it. Now, I know it's not NeoVim specific, since CLangD and Lua LSP work like a charm, but Godot's would be laggy and unresponsive, and I'd frequently have to save a file for the language server to send out new diagnostics and such. Just terrible. So for those of you who don't know Godot's LSP, it's goofy. Most language servers use standard I/O, basically the same thing every hello world uses to print to the console. However, Godot prints warnings and such to the console, so instead, its language server uses ports, which is just goofy, and a lot of LSP clients don't really expect that. Although it seems that the ports work with Emacs because it's just truly blessed. And while it was somewhat slow if I used the GUI editor instead of my go-to headless editor, it never really slowed down as much as in NeoVim. And I've grown out of my ultra ascetic notepad only phase, so I really need a quick and responsive LSP. I need it. badly. So I decided to make the GD LSP use standard IO instead of stinky ports. How hard could it be? Godot's open source. I already developed a quote familiarity with Scons, and I was in the C++ mood. I even cloned the Godot repo and did a speedy little ripgrep for language protocol, and hey presto, it's right there. Looking like a whole snack, I gotta say. I just had to pop that bit out and make it use standard IO. So I wrote a little doodad to scan standard in for LSP client messages, and then isolate the actual client request, which I was just gonna pop right into Godot's language protocol, and I figured I could just, make that print to standard out. Done in a few days, over the weekend. Real easy. But actually, not easy. Turns out I was nowhere near as familiar with Scons as I had thought. The little toy I had to make GD extensions was amateur hour at the Apollo. I burned the midnight oil over the better part of a week just to be able to import the language protocol header successfully. It was a pain, but after more coffee than my doctor would like to hear, I got it compiling successfully, only to realize that my little binary was acting strange. I still just had the scanner, but instead of reading CN like the little cutie it is, it just wouldn't work. It wouldn't even create the log file I was using. Something more serious was going on, and I didn't even know what. So I combed through Godot's source code, checking to see if something disabled standard IO, but next I double checked my sconstruct file, which, it's big now. And I checked all my build options and it just wasn't making sense. I was even telling my linker that, hey, I'm making a console application here. I couldn't figure out why standard IO wasn't working. So just a few days ago, after searching in vain for a cause, which is more midnight oil burnt, I decided to take a little breather and wrote a simple hello world to really check what little sanity I had left. Turns out it was my compiler. You can tell I was losing my mind because instead of writing a sensible message, I just wrote I figured I just had to update it and it would be a simple fix. So I hopped into MSys2 and ran the good old Pacman SYU. I am 64-bit and minimalist new for Windows pilled after all. And then G++ just stopped working and it wouldn't compile at all. At this point, I gave up. It was past midnight, I had lost my compilation privileges, and it was all just too much for my sleep-deprived morale to handle. But the next day, I tested out a bunch of different compilers and aggressively rearranged the order of my path variables. And ultimately, I got G++ and standard IO working again. So how's the program coming along? It prints, which honestly, this is a milestone. So right now the repo is private, but once I have something that works, I'll of course make it public along with uploading the binaries. I just get embarrassed about having a repo that's honestly just hello world and a massive sconstruct file. So stay posted for that. As always, the real ones in the Discord server will get the binaries right while they're ripping hot from my CPU. Anyways, that's it for the video. May 1st I was expecting things to go a lot differently. It was literally the perfect month. The very last day was Friday and I was excited to show off all the great progress I knew I was gonna make. But here we are. C'est la vie, baby. As always, thank you for watching. I appreciate your time and I hope you have a good day. If you found some pleasure in the extreme schadenfreude of this video, please give me that thumbs up. My morale is at an all-time low and I really need the dopamine hit. And if you want to follow along with my misadventures in struggling to compile basic C++, please subscribe. I read all your comments, so if you want to convince me to stick with NeoVim or to try out a package you really enjoy, you should let me know in a comment. There's also a Discord server for the channel, as I mentioned earlier. The link to that is in the description. I also have a vanishing presence on Twitter, which you can also find the link to in the description. But as you can imagine, this project has really been using all 2 of my brain cells, so I have not been posting, even when I do bake and should post a picture. But speaking of baking, let's get to it. Alright, this looks pretty classic and doesn't look very different from my other sourdoughs, but this is actually a major development in my baking journey. This is, if you ask me about this, I won't talk about it in the video because I can just really go into the deep end, but I'm fairly confident that baking influencers on Instagram and TikTok and stuff and YouTube, I think some of them cheat. And I'll get into the details later if you really ask me about it, because, I kind of went off the deep end there. I look at other people's bread, I'm like, their bread, it's kind of overperforming, as some might say. But anyways, I finally figured out how people do it, how people cheat their bread and get really exceptional dough. And this is it. I tried out the secret right here. I doped my gluten. This is not natty bread. I added additional gluten. So, regular bread flour is, stronger than normal flour, which, lets it get these big bubbles and rise as well as it does. And then, you add more gluten and, it gets even stronger. You get better bubbles and it's even better. And guess what? You don't even have to knead. Right. I didn't even need this one. And I made a second loaf too. And it's got exceptional ear and I didn't even knead. Crazy. And this one too, this is the number 2 because I always make 2 at a time. And again, look at this one. Amazing ear. Didn't knead. These are just 2 really great sourdoughs. And honestly, I just mixed all the ingredients together, came back to it like later that day, formed it into a bowl, and done. That was it. I didn't even knead throughout the day like other sourdoughs. And really, this is a game changer. I've been, this is why I don't do steroids in real life, because I'd just be like, what? Yeah, I'm cruising on 500 grams of test, fucking easy, bud. And 10 years later, my liver would not exist. But bread, it's different. I can cheat on bread. My liver won't be taking the damage. My waistline will be. But anyways, and just to prove that, we take a look at this cross section, just to prove that, hey, look at that crumb structure. It looks great. And honestly, I didn't even need it. Didn't even need. This was insane. Such a game changer. And honestly, yeah, I'm dope in gluten. I'm out here. I'm not natty bacon. I'm fraud in my bread. That's the term d'art in the weightlifting circles for when someone is taking PEDs. But yeah, anyways, as you can tell, we'll talk about it in Discord. If you ask, I will go into my big gluten food tubing conspiracy, which really just, I was going crazy. I really was going crazy because I would look at my bread and I would look at the breads these guys were doing. I'm like, I'm checking all the boxes here. And yet sometimes it just would not stack up. But anyways, I'm going crazy. I'm off the deep end. I have gone insane. I'm cutting it. I'm cutting the feed right here, right now. As always, and I can use the classic sign off, maybe with a bit of guilt because I'm not natty anymore, or my bread ain't natty. I'm not a natty baker no more. The yeast in the air is free, so go out there and bake. It's great, it's delicious, it's good for you, and it makes a great gift. And it's a great way to show people that you appreciate them. And I appreciate all of you. Thank you for watching, and I will see you.